Around Ilara, the other farmers toiled, their movements slow and deliberate, under the oppressive weight of the day. The field, once promised abundance, now mocked them with its barrenness. Thorns and stubborn weeds choked the few pitiful stalks of withered corn, a cruel parody of the harvest they desperately needed. Their oxen and donkeys, usually willing beasts of burden, stood stubbornly in the shade of a meager acacia tree, their heads drooping, refusing to even lift a hoof. The normally resilient animals did not want to succumb to the humans, because the humans were descendants of Adam, who didn't listen to God in Eden. Kalan, his muscles straining with each fruitless attempt to till the soil, let out a frustrated groan. His calloused hands, raw from the harsh earth, bled slightly, adding to the misery. He looked at his wife Mara, her face etched with worry lines that seemed to deepen with each passing moment. Their youngest child, barely old enough to walk, whimpered in the shade of a dilapidated cart, its once brightly painted wood now faded and peeling. The cart, like the others scattered across the field, was empty, a stark reminder of their failed harvest. "It's no use," Mara said, her voice barely a whisper against the relentless drone of the cicadas. Her eyes, usually sparkling with a lively spirit, were dull with fatigue and despair.
The first rays of
The earth
dawn
is
painted the
cursed.
cave dwellings
The
a
animals
soft
won't work.
apricot hue.
The crops
He
won't
looked at
grow.
Noah,
What are we
his
to
eyes
do?
brimming with a
He
hope
knew
that
the
felt
words of
both
hope he
fragile
wanted to
and
offer
immense.
felt hollow
Maybe this
against the
child,
stark reality of
Lamech's
their
voice,
situation.
roughened
drought
by
had
years of
lasted for
toil and
months,
hardship,
draining the
carried
life
across the
from
small
land
village,
and from their
will
spirits.
bring us rest.
Their meager
The
savings were almost
villagers,
gone,
emerging from
and
their
the
cave
looming
homes,
winter
watched
threatened to bring
silently.
starvation.
Their faces,
As the sun began its
weathered
slow
and lined,
descent,
reflected the
casting
shared
long,
burden of a
ominous
life
shadows across
lived
the
under
barren
the
field,
shadow of
a
violence
glimmer of
and
hope appeared on
uncertainty.
the horizon.
They nodded
It
slowly,
was
a
old
chorus
man
of
Tiber,
silent
the
agreement to
village
Lamech's
elder,
prayer.
known for his
Methuselah,
wisdom
his
and
wrinkled
his
face,
uncanny
a
understanding of the
roadmap
land.
of time,
Even the
placed a
oxen and
comforting
donkeys
hand on
seemed
Lamech's
to sense the
shoulder.
shift in
He had
energy,
seen countless
their movements less
generations rise and
sluggish,
fall,
their
witnessed
eyes
the
more
cyclical
alert.
nature of
As
violence
the
and
days
peace.
turned into weeks,
In the distance,
the miracle
birds
happened.
chirped a
The
melody of
drought
hope,
broke,
a
rain
counterpoint
fell,
to the solemn
and the new
quiet of
seeds
the
sprouted,
villagers.
promising
Lamech
a
continued to
future
gaze at
of
his
hope
son,
and
his
abundance.
heart
The
overflowing with a
harshness
love
of the
that
field
transcended the
had
harsh
yielded to the
realities of their
resilience of the
world.
human spirit,
He saw in
and the
Noah
promise
not
of
just
a
a
harvest
child,
once again
but a
filled the air.
promise, a potential for a future. His strong arms
free from the
cradling a
relentless
tiny
cycle
bundle
of
violence, presented his
that had
newborn
defined
son
their
Noah.
lives.
Lamech,
The weight of his people's
white
suffering
beard
rested
softened by the
heavily on
warm
his
glow,
shoulders.
looked
But
down
in
at
the
his
soft
son
gaze
with
of
an
his
expression
infant
of
son,
profound love.
he found a flicker of
Methuselah, a
His
belief
frail
that
frame
perhaps,
leaning heavily
just
on his
perhaps,
wooden staff,
this child,
approached.
Noah,
Methuselah
would
the
usher
grandpa,
in an
he
era
gently
of
placed
peace
a wrinkled
and
hand on Noah's
tranquility.
forehead,
The sunrise,
his eyes twinkling
a
with
silent
wisdom
witness
that
to this
transcended
moment
time.
of
The
fragile
villagers
hope, responded
bathed
with murmurs
the
of their
village
own,
in a
their
golden
faces
light,
etched with a hope
promising
that
a new
mirrored the
day,
starry sky
a new
visible through
beginning.
the open entrance. He saw the pride in his wife's eyes, the quiet joy on his brother's face, and the wide-eyed awe of his children. It was a scene he would carry in his heart for the rest of his days, a memory as precious as the tiny life he held in his arms. He knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his soul, that this night, this child, held the promise of something extraordinary. The birth of Noah was not just the beginning of a life, but the start of a legacy that would echo through generations.
The sun, a benevolent eye in the azure sky, warmed the parched earth. For the beginning of humans at earth, the animals had refused to work. Oxen stood stubbornly, donkeys brayed defiance, and the fields, once vibrant, were now choked with weeds. Then, as if a silent command had been whispered on the wind, it began. Noah approached the most stubborn ox, a beast known for his rebellious spirit. Noah placed his invention, the yoke, on the ox's broad neck. Barth, instead of bucking and bellowing, as he had done, lowered his head in quiet submission. A collective gasp rippled through the small crowd of onlookers. Noah, tears welling in his eyes, gently guided the ox towards the field. The change was instantaneous. Donkeys, once symbols of stubborn resistance, now patiently awaited their loads. Sheep grazed calmly, their wool gleaming under the sunlight. The air thrummed with a sense of renewed hope. It was as if a heavy weight had been lifted, not only from the villagers' shoulders, but from the very land itself. The transformation of the fields was almost miraculous. Where once withered weeds clawed at the thirsty soil, now stood tall stalks of golden wheat and barley, swaying gently in a soft breeze. The change in humans' food, thanks to Noah's inventions for fieldwork, was tremendous. The villagers, their faces radiant with joy, worked alongside the animals, a symphony of cooperation replacing the earlier discord. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the land, the villagers celebrated their return to abundance, the animals resting peacefully after a day's work, their quiet obedience, a promise of a brighter future.